What's up, everybody? What's up? It is your girl, LaRhonda Marie, and welcome to Under Construction with LaRhonda Marie. I am LaRhonda Marie. Um, I am excited, as always, about the people that I have discussions with. Today, it's something that hits close to my heart because today I want to wish my son a heavenly birthday. He would have been 26 years old today, but even though it's been 26 years, it's still at this time of the year, it can still be kind of triggering for me. So I can get a little sad, I can get a little depressed and want to kind of just be to myself a lot. And I'm a person that usually when I'm going through something, I like to kind of crawl up in my own little space and just be there. And over the years, I've had to learn to do things to stop me from getting into that depressive state that I can go into during this time of the year. I have a couple of times throughout the year that this will occur. It will trigger me when he was born and when he passed. Those dates are usually triggering for me. And I don't know about anybody else, but if you are going through something, this is the show that you need to listen to, because hopefully something that I can say or my special guest will say will help you through the holiday season, because we do know that a lot of times that during the holiday season we start to miss those that are no longer here with us. And so I thought it would be best to have this show for myself personally and everybody else that's going through something. We had someone in the Hollywood world that took his own life last week, and it was very surprising for a lot of people, myself included, because I'm a fan of the Ellen Show. And so I thought, it wasn't planned, but this is how I had it worked out. So it's at the right time for us to discuss. And I'm going to bring my special guest out in just a few minutes, but I do need to take care of some housekeeping items. Of course, I am here at Under Construction with LaRhonda Marie is here because of Swag Her magazine. If you are a woman, or if you're a woman that's a coach, that's an author, you're a boss woman of any kind, and you need to expand your visibility and your brand, Swag Her magazine is the place to do that. We have several different packages that you can choose from, just depending on how much you want to expand your brand. And so I'm so excited that I am a part of Swag Her. So if you need any of our services, please reach out to me, myself, or you can just go ahead and jog on over to Swag Her Online Magazine, and we will get you set all up. I'm going to go ahead and just give you some more information on Swag Her Magazine, and I'll be right back.
Swag Her Magazine is an empowerment and lifestyle publication for Black women who like to be real with themselves and in business. The magazine also offers public relations services and visibility coaching for Black women-led businesses, coaches, authors, and girl bosses so that they receive more exposure and grow their brands. To learn more about Swag Her Magazine, please visit www.swagher.net. That's www.swagher.net. Check our swag. We're more than a mag.
Yes, so please check us out if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, or services that you may need. Please let me know. Now, during this broadcast, you can support my page by sending stars, a digital gift that helps me earn money. We use our stars to hire more journalists and content creators while supporting other Black-owned businesses, hoping to create an ecosystem that brings about success for all involved. If you find value in our content, send your stars. All right, and so I am so excited about bringing Donnulette. Donnulette, give me 2 thumbs up if you're ready to come on. Looks like she's ready, so I'm going to bring her on. Now, be ready to introduce yourself. All right, how are you doing now?
I am doing well. Thank you very much. My name is Dulaney, and I am the owner of New Beginnings Christian Counseling in South Oklahoma City.
Awesome. I really appreciate you coming and being a part of the program today. This is something that I personally need, and I just think that really it's a lot of us. I've been talking to a few people that just need some reminders, some tips, some things. We know that during the holiday season, it can be a little difficult for some of us that have lost people that are important in our lives and they're not here anymore. So I wanted to get the opportunity to kind of discuss those things with you. And so I really wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of the program today.
Absolutely. And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
All right, well, we're gonna jump. We're gonna jump right into everything first. Did you want to tell? Well, you've already pretty much. So, how long have you been? Can I call you a therapist? Because I was kind of
Therapist, counselor, yeah, they're interested.
counselor. Yeah. So, how long have you been in the field?
Yes, I've been a therapist since 2017. I was under supervision for 2.5 years, and then I've been in private practice for 2.5 years, so a total of about 5.
So right after COVID, was it? So you started your own practice during COVID or right after COVID?
Right before COVID hit. Right on the cuffs. I opened a private practice, but I joined a group practice during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a private group practice, and so I had the support, of that group. And so, but after a year, I just branched out on my own.
Does it seem like business has gone up since 2020 more than what?
Yeah, it really
in 2017.
Yeah, it really has. Just because families have lost so many loved ones during COVID. I mean, there's so many deaths, and then not only that, a lot of folks were laid off, and a lot of folks lost their jobs or lost their homes. And so there was a lot of grief counseling, lots of grief, just trying to get used to what the new normal was for individuals.
Right. And people think that grief has to do with death. And a lot of times grief may not have anything to do with an actual physical death, but a death of something, Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah. So there's different types of grief. So you can grief and loss. So you can grieve the loss of a job, the loss of income, your home, divorce, relationships, social status, financial status. So grief and loss, the grief part, again, most people identify with more so death, but it's so much more. Any loss, a loss of a pet.
Right. Yeah. It's loss. If there's a loss, then grief can come, is what you're
Absolutely.
What are some physical signs of grief?
Well, because grief is so unique to each individual, I think that it just depends. And so how you experience stress in your body, because that's what grief causes. It causes this intense amount of stress. So if you're someone who headaches show up when you're stressed, then you're probably going to have more headaches. Inflammation is one. Increase in blood pressure. Being tired and fatigued, loss of appetite. So it just really depends with the individual, because it's so unique.
So it can take a toll on basically your mental health as far as your physical.
Yeah.
How do people handle grief differently?
Well, again, because it's such a unique journey. And so I think some of the factors that determines how a person manages grief is, first of all, what type of grief it is. If it is, and we're talking about the loss of a loved one here. Mm-hmm. So the loss of a loved one, how that person died, how young that person was. Right. And then whatever your definition or what your belief, your core belief is about death. Some people grieve a little bit differently when they know that they may see their loved one again.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Right. So,
your faith. Can help you get through it.
Yeah. So if you don't hold that belief and death is final, and you feel like you'll never see them again, or if that's your belief that you'll never see them again, that might be a little bit more grim. And so working through that would be, maybe a little bit more challenging, not impossible, but a little bit more challenging for some folks.
And it can take some time. I know personally I lost my son at a young age. And so I did not know how to even, sometimes you don't even know what you're dealing with. Sometimes you don't know. Like, I really feel like I did not really start grieving for him until like maybe 10 years later.
Wow.
And that was because I did not really, I just went on with my life. A lot of times we'll just, okay, this happened and let's just move on.
Yes.
And if I'm being honest, me and the father, he's my ex-husband, we literally just had a conversation this year about the death of our son this year. And so we never came together, even at the time we were married and everything, but we never like discussed it. We never talked about it. And so we just, like I said, death, funeral, went back to work, went back to our lives and never discussed it. And so a lot of times there can be some delay in it. So there's not really a timetable on grief at all, really.
Right.
It's when you really are ready to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think
on that a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that, there's not a timetable because we all process a little bit differently. But I do think that it's important to give yourself permission to grieve. And so in our society, we are so busy.
Right.
We glorify that hustle and grind game.
Right.
And we don't really take the time out to really do a self-check to see if we're okay. And then do the things sometimes that we need to do to be okay.
Right.
And I think that we don't give ourselves time to grieve because sometimes our grieving is uncomfortable for other people.
Right.
And we feel guilty when we grieve because we don't want other people to see us sad. And people are saying, "How are you doing?" And we're like, "Fine, I'm making
blessed." I'm struggling.
Struggling.
And this leads me to I was going to ask, is it better to succumb to grief or ignore it? So
I don't ever think it's good to ignore it, but not to succumb to it either because it will overtake you. So I think that it's important to have a plan and allow yourself to go through it. So you have to make room for that pain. And that pain is very uncomfortable. Sometimes it's really intense, but making room for the pain, giving yourself time to go through the process, maybe taking time off from work, or if you've already used your time from work, then make sure that you're managing your self-care, talking to someone face-to-face that can support you and provide that space, that safe space for you to hurt without trying to rush your process.
Correct. That's good. What are some ways to comfort a person that is grieving, that is grieving?
I would say the best way to comfort someone is to ask them how you can support them. Ask them what they need. Don't give them what you think they need.
Absolutely.
They need. Yes.
That's good. I was like, ask me, because I may not feel like being bothered right now.
Right.
I still want to know you're there if I need you. Because Black people, we are prideful folks. And so a lot of times we want to, I know for me, I've been single for so long, I try to play that tough role. But sometimes you just have to be vulnerable enough to and have a close person. So that sounds cool. What are some ways for a grieving person to cope during the holidays?
Well, I would say, first of all, do not isolate. That is the worst thing that you can do. So get out amongst family and friends and people who you have meaningful relationships with and engage in your interests and your hobbies and things of that nature. Don't keep busy, but be productive. Because there's a busyness that you can do and you're trying to avoid, right? And that busyness works for a while, but it's very short term. But not keeping yourself busy, just being proactive, being productive in the time that you're spending.
That's good. That's good. That's a good point. Be productive. I know personally for me, I started I every year doing usually on the 22nd or 23rd, somewhere between the 22nd and the 24th, I'm usually throwing a party for my son. I had to start doing that because I would get into a space. So I did I start thinking, well, at the beginning of December, I'll be planning a party. That way I don't have to worry about it. And I didn't take it as avoiding, because I'm thinking about them the whole time.
Right,
I'm
right.
going through it. This is what I do with my other kids. It usually takes me a couple of weeks to plan their parties out. So that's how I would look at it. And
Yeah.
and then have my whole family with me on the day, so that I'm not sitting here because I used to isolate that's exactly how I used to deal with it. I used to just isolate myself, because you're dealing with, again, how people, my son was premature, so I had to deal with the guilt of that, or the shame of what I was thinking may
Yeah.
have been the cause. So that's why it took me a long time to say, okay, let me say out loud what I was feeling, what I was really feeling. And so, yeah, I don't think you should isolate yourself, because that is definitely a way to
Yeah.
not get through it.
Right. Because you're just alone with your
You
thoughts.
get along with all those crazy thoughts that can be
Yes.
going through your head. And so, and I know that grief and depression are two different things. Can you describe the difference between grief and depression?
Yes. So grief is very specific. So it is the cause of the depression in the grief, the lower mood and the sadness is the root cause of it is the death, and then that's it, or the loss, and
Alone.
that's it. Now depression is a little bit more different because it's more persuasive, pervasive, and persistent, and it's throughout all situations, right?
Gotcha.
So it's um and it can also is on a spectrum, of course, and so it could be it can impair a person's function from day to day. The difference with grief is over time it kind of lessens. It goes away over time, or it's not as intense. The
Gotcha.
depression just kind of stays the same.
Is depression something that will naturally come with grief?
Well, in the 5 stages of grief, depression is a part of it. It's part of the stages. Of course, those stages aren't linear, so you don't have to go through, this stage and complete
Right,
this stage to get to this stage. It,
right.
it is a part of the stage of grief.
And what are those 5 stages?
It's denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance.
Is it better to go around people that may trigger memories of the person, or stay away from those people?
I think it depends on where you are in your healing journey.
That's good. That's a good point.
Right. So you know what your threshold is.
Yeah.
And so you know that you're not ready for certain things, then I would say that to not maybe put yourself in situations that you know that you can't handle.
What is the best way to coexist with a family member who may be battling mental illness in a way that a person is unable to understand or tolerate?
Say that for me one more time.
What is the best way to coexist with a family member who may be battling mental illness in a way that a person is unable to understand or tolerate?
That one is a difficult one. I would say if you're trying to help a family member with mental illness, then I think the first thing is educating yourself.
That's good.
Educating yourself to make sure that you totally understand what that person is going through, because there's so much stigma.
Yeah.
And so there's some assumptions when as it pertains to mental health. We think sometimes that people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but some people can't reach their bootstraps.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Or
right.
if you just think better, then you'll feel better. But if it were that easy, then 1 out of 5 people in our country wouldn't have mental health issues.
Right. So you're seeking certification in prenatal mental health. Explain what that is.
So prenatal mental health is just for individuals who are women, who deal with depression and anxiety, psychosis, and mood disorders during pregnancy or after pregnancy.
Wow.
Yes,
Oh
and
my God, that would have been something I needed. Yeah. Wow.
Yes,
Well, because I was young. I was 21 when I had my son Dion, and the thoughts that were going on in my head, I didn't realize postpartum depression even existed then. And so I lived in shame for so long remembering the thoughts that I would have in my head. And I
Right.
wasn't able to put a definition to what I was feeling. So it was all shame for me
Right.
until I read the right book. And then
Mhm.
it was able to tell me exactly what I was feeling. Wasn't normal. It wasn't something that wasn't normal for a lot of women who had babies.
Right.
Uh,
Is.
so a lot of that is educating ourselves and knowing, because we can live in shame. Which can you kind of expound on just the education of just knowing what you're dealing with, being able to identify what it is you're dealing with.
Yeah, and so it just really depends. I think that for first time moms, sometimes it's hard because if uh, a lot of first time moms think that they may drop their baby, that they may do something that may harm their baby. And so there's this constant anxiety and not able to relax.
Right,
Really hard on themselves that they're not being the perfect mom because sometimes when you bring babies home they cry and
right.
and they just cry. Right.
Hmm.
This isn't They're trying to get used to their environment,
Right,
and so sometimes there's a lot of guilt with that, like I'm not being a good mom, and then even questioning themselves. And so I don't want to leave out dads either because it's the same thing, right?
right.
So dads have baby blues too, first time fathers and not even first time fathers. And then if you complicate it a little bit more, if there was a miscarriage or if there was a loss of a child before that, the guilt,
Right,
the fear of bringing another baby into the world, maybe this
right.
baby won't make it and it's my fault. So there's so much that goes along with that.
Your mental, yeah, it can really deal with your mental. And
Yeah.
for me being so young, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I feel so much more empowered, and that's what education will do for you guys. It will empower you, and it will, so you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah,
uh
and you know that it's normal, so you don't think that you're the only one that's going through this.
that
Like, they have a whole organization that's dedicated to women with, issues during pregnancy and after pregnancy, just because it's that common.
What made you want to go get that certification?
Well, I had a young lady who I saw a couple of years ago, and she was one of the first people that I saw for postpartum depression and anxiety. And
Mhm.
I really wanted to help her, and I really enjoyed helping her and speaking with her and just seeing the progress that she was making in treatment. And I thought maybe I need to specialize in this just to make sure that I get all of the information and become as competent in this area as possible so I can be the most effective that I can possibly be.
Personally, I think that's awesome, because that would have helped me out so much,
Yeah.
just so much with what I dealt with those first 10 years,
Yeah.
and so, um, is mental health something that we should be nurturing right at birth?
Yes. Yes. And
What would
yet,
that look like? What would that look like for us to be able to nurture mental health for our kids?
I just think that, at first, I am a really big supporter of parenting classes. I don't think that you have to have a deficit in order to take parenting classes. I think that if you learn how to help children in their early development stage and to manage their emotions, then I think that a lot of problems that we're seeing in our society we wouldn't see, because the people who are the parents would then nurture the children. It won't be this generation of some families are known for certain things,
Hmm.
right? And so I think that there would be a early intervention. So when the signs are there, you treat it early. And that way, if you treat it early, you get ahead of it, and it won't be this big explosion, or it won't come out when this child is, acting out in school and being
Right,
suspended from school, or a time at this child's development when they're really trying to figure out who they are, and they're feeling that they're weird or they're different or they're not normal. So I think that it's really important to start with educating the parents first, and then making sure that that's something that is maintained in the household. You have to start there first, and then of course our educational system.
oof, that's a whole nother deal.
Mental health should be a part, just like you have to have math and social
Yeah,
studies. No, I think that you should have to have psychology. How can you go through school, 12 years of schooling without learning anything about human behavior?
I don't know how we did it. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how we did it, but we are living in such a different world today. I do believe those kids that they need a extra education
Yeah,
on what's going on with them. And really, at an adolescent age, we're trying to find out who we are. That's the
right.
best time to go in and say things to the kids. And so I totally agree with you on that. How does how does a person's nutrition treat how does a person's nutrition treat their mental health
Food and mood go hand in hand. So so your
You
gut,
sure right.
I mean, really, your gut is your second brain. Your gut is literally your second brain. And so it is very important. I remember when I was a kid, they used to have that little commercial that says, "You are what you eat, from your head down to your feet. You are, you are." And so nutrition is so important. We are in our country so overweight but malnourished. It's
Mhm.
because we're not eating nourishing foods. We have a sad diet that's full of saturated fats and processed foods and things of that nature, and we're not feeding our brains. Our guts are unhealthy, so which also attributes to us having these mental health issues as well.
Right, right. Michael Spencer, thank you so much for commenting. He says when my ex had a miscarriage, she was in a mess and it caused her because she wanted the baby, but I was there to support her. And he's saying, no, we live in the same world. It's just people change. Yes. To your first point, that's awesome that you were there to support your ex when she lost the baby. Losing a baby
Ooh,
at a miscarriage stage or actually having that child, I have been through both, and
mhm.
they both have their own toll on a woman, mentally, physically, emotionally, and again, you deal with what did I do wrong?
Right.
Could I have prevented this in some kind of way? And so the support of your man that's going through it too, that because you suffered a loss too, Michael. So no one's both parents are suffering the same. I'm not saying that my ex-husband wasn't going through his own pain. Just we as women sometimes think we go through it more because we actually are the ones having the baby, but a loss is a loss.
Yeah.
And grief is grief. And so I'm glad that you were there for her. And so I appreciate your comment and sharing your story. But back to depression, it just seems like even as young, these kids, like I've never seen it, or maybe I didn't pay attention when I was young,
Mhm.
but I noticed it a whole lot more now with children. It seem like they become a lot more depressed. Like I can notice it in my younger. I have two sets of kids, so I have some in their 20s, and I have some that just turned 12. And
Okay.
I feel like I noticed the 12-year-olds depression quicker than I ever would have the ones that are in their 20s. Do
Mhm.
you think it's something that we're not doing or doing that seem like these kids seem to be a little bit more depressed than what they used to be? I don't even know how to ask that question, but
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the nutrition.
okay.
Right. So I'll go
Mhm.
back to nutrition and what we're eating. I think that that is a huge part of it. But I think also there's so much pressure on our kids. There's pressure on our kids that I didn't have when
Right,
I was 12 years old.
right,
I didn't have all the social media. We didn't have that stuff. We didn't have
right,
cell phones. I had that rotor, that phone that
right.
you were like you had to wait till it
Have
came.
to wait. Well,
You
you have to wait to use
had
the
to
phone.
wait. you know. So so I think that that's different. And again, living in our society is just so focused on success and what success look like. Having the hottest new whatever. And sometimes
Right.
children are sometimes dealing with depression because they're comparing themselves. Their self-esteem is low.
That's right.
They're not fitting in. They're being bullied because they're not fitting in, and then other children are making fun of them because may not be wearing name brand clothes. So it's just so much
that
that
they're
they
dealing
have to
with.
deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to, like I have to speak to it right when I see it. And I encourage every parent, if you see signs, of depression, jump on that right then and there, because with, like you said, social media, they get so many different ideas from social media that I would hate for anybody to lose their child because they're just not paying attention, that. And
Right.
we really truly have to pay attention. And
Yeah.
I pay attention to them and their friends, and I'm paying attention to their parents. I mean, you just never know what people are going through.
Right.
And so it's best to pay attention. What about those who may use mental illness as a term to manipulate
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
situation?
That happens all the time. And I think sometimes that's why people are more apathetic towards people with mental illness sometimes. And that's why they think like, okay, you just acting this way because pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
I think that's kind of where that comes from. But that's just such a small amount of people
Right.
but one bad apple
Can
sometimes can spoil the
you
whole.
sure right? Because it can change the whole narrative when it comes to things.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's an illness in itself?
I think that it is. I think it's a survival. It's a survival tactic, because people, and so I'm gonna be careful to use this word manipulate because, I learned that people don't really manipulate. What they do is they learn how to get their needs met in a illegitimate way. So they have a legitimate need, but they just go about the wrong way of getting it.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'm gonna go back. I forgot one other question I did want to ask. I don't know how I skipped that. What are some ways? Let me see. What are the ways for giving? What are ways for families to grieve together without falling into depression? That's good. That I wanted to. What are some ways that families can grieve together without? I have a friend that around the time his mom passes, every year he just goes into a depressive state. And I try my best to try to pull him out of that. But, but then I also want to be conscious of the fact that, your grief is real and you probably do need that time to reflect. But what can we do to help avoid that?
I think that is great what you said a few minutes back where you said you planned a birthday party for your son. So I think that it's important to create rituals to where you're celebrating, right? And enjoying the family members in celebration.
Right.
They talking about fond memories. There's sometimes that we sit around. I lost a son too 26 years ago. And sometimes we'll just sit around and tell stories about our experience with that individual, and it's warming, and it makes us feel more connected in that moment and stronger in that moment because we all have this is a common denominator for us. And so it's just an opportunity for us to love on each other and to acknowledge our loss and that we miss him. But all of our memories are very fond.
Right.
Sometimes we cry, and we embrace each other while we cry. We support each other. And, I think that's the best thing to do. Again, isolating is not good. And then I think the refusal to accept. When you have difficulty accepting death or the loss, that's the struggle. That could be a stuck point for some people. They just can't accept what happened.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna be. I tell you, my family will be texting me and say, "What are we doing for Dion's birthday?" And I love seeing that more than I like seeing. Are you doing okay today? Because I know this is the day. So are
Right.
you doing okay? So I love the fact that my family is like, "Hey, what's going on? What are we eating for Dion's birthday?" It's more of a celebration. So again, that's how I changed my narrative when it came to my son. I still grieve him. I still feel the loss.
Right.
But I am so but I do find the positivity in that whole entire situation in my life. And so that's what I would suggest to everyone that is going through a loss or have been through a loss. Try to find the positive part and be thankful for the time that you had with that person. Donnulette, thank you so much. Do you have any more closing words? Do you have anything coming up? And guys, I didn't say anything, but I have all of her information at the bottom. So if you are seeking a therapist, those are her. There's her contact information is there. I don't have a phone number. I'm sorry. I should have asked. I should have asked for one, but I do have her email address and her social media and the name of her business. She's in the south side of Oklahoma City. That's what you said, right?
Yep, Southside Oklahoma City. I also have a website. Is nbccokc.com.
Did I not get? I didn't even see that. I'm so sorry. I wish you would have caught that for me. Dang. So she has a website also. I am so sorry because I was.
No, you're okay. And it has all my services on there. And I do accept insurance. So it has a list of the insurances that I accept. And I also accept EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. I am credentialed on some of those panels as well.
So you have openings right now then?
Yes, I do have openings.
Okay, so everybody, she has openings, and the information that I have is down below, and I'm sure you'll be able to find her with all that I gave you.
I'm sure I'm the only Donnulette in Oklahoma City.
I bet you are. I bet you. When my mom saw your name, she's like, Hamilton? What? How is she a Hamilton? I said, oh, Lord.
I'm married to a Hamilton.
She's married because we're Hamiltons too. So she's like, I said, she's married into the Hamilton. She said, well, she could be our cousin. I said, oh.
Maybe so. My husband has a big family.
Sounds like Well, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to stay back for just a little bit, but thank you again so much for being a part of the program. Guys, if you have any questions, put them in the comments because I'm going to send them right to her. And, and when she responds to them, I'll get them right back to you. But thank you again so much.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure.
Wonderful holiday.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Michael, thank you again for your feedback. Nicole, as always, thank you so much for coming through and showing up. I appreciate the compliment. Don't forget to share this conversation. Again, the holidays is a time that we can reflect on who we have and who we don't have, and sometimes that can take you into a different space. So I hope that this last 30 minutes or so has lifted you in some kind of way. And please come back. I will not have a show next week. I'm going to take a break for the New Year's. I will be doing some family things, so I will not have a show next Thursday, but the following Thursday I will. But I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I am a child of God, so Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year, and I will see you guys next year. Thank you guys for joining me on Under Construction with LaRhonda Marie. Your girl, LaRhonda Marie, is out.